Let me start this off with a story. Imagine me, but a decade ago, maybe a little bit more. I was in sixth grade. This is the first grade of middle school. We had a dance coming up. It was called a hoedown, which, especially if you're not in the US, a hoedown is this dance where you're dancing to country music. You do these specific dance, you're kicking, you're going like your arms are swinging with each other, and you're going around in circles. Except we needed to ask someone out to this dance. Now, me in sixth grade, I was kind of a normal kid. I mean, I was playing video games, a lot of Minecraft, got my Xbox One for the first time, so that's where I was at. I would probably go home and play video games a lot. Except there was this one girl that I wanted to ask out. I won't say her name, but let's just call her Sarah. And I don't know why, I don't know what was in my head back then to make me like someone, but I liked this girl, right? And I waited for months to, tell her about it. It was just one of those crushes in my head, right? And then the hoedown was coming closer and closer. And we were in a gym class, and the gym teachers were literally like, all right, like everyone find your date, ask someone, like go with a friend, whatever. So I go up to this girl, this girl, Sarah, and I say, oh my, Sarah, like, would you want to go to the hoedown with me? And the gym teachers are watching this interaction, and she turns around and she leaves. She doesn't even say a word to me. She turns around and leaves. And I'm just sitting there like, oh shit. How did this happen? I was just like, there's no way that this just happened. And crazily enough, the gym teachers saw this interaction. They saw this happen. And so at the end, when everyone who didn't have a date yet, didn't have a partner yet, they went into one group. The gym teachers who saw this interaction put us together as a couple, as partners in this dance. Fast forward a couple weeks, we had to do practices in gym class to learn this hoedown stuff. So I knew what I was doing, and she did too. We didn't practice together at that time. And come to the actual hoedown, to the actual dance, we're in this massive circle, and I need to hold this girl's hand and, do like these things, get an arm links. This girl rolls up her sleeves when she has to touch my hand. Like, I can't do this with this sleeve, I'm too fucking tall, but just imagine just having a sleeve going up. Fucking bug on my hand. Imagine a sleeve going all the way up to your hand, and then she's like holding it down, and she would only give me her hand if she was holding the sleeve. That's how much she didn't want to go with me for whatever reason back then. And that was a long time ago, that was in sixth grade, but it was one of those first experiences that really made me feel more insecure, made me more just think of myself as someone who could not get girls. And that was in sixth grade. And then throughout high school, I think I asked out around 10 girls actually. And every time I asked a girl out, I got rejected. Sometimes they would let me off easy. They'd be like, oh, let's stay friends. Or other times it would be like, no, like I'm okay. And that just kept reinforcing that same image. It was just like, oh, I'm not the type of guy to get girls. It created this sort of inferiority to me with other guys, that like I can't get girls, but they can. And it wasn't until after high school, like after I graduated senior year, that I really figured this out. And I was able to transform myself from this dude who just asked out 10 girls throughout high school, got rejected every time, to being someone that girls were somewhat fighting over. When I'd be in some public places, I'd go to parties, I'd be able to, choose who I want to talk to, and be able to link up if I want to, be able to get a number if I want to. And there's one huge difference that was made this year when I really figured it out. And actually, one of the biggest things I recommend to finding this out is to be around someone who is already able to talk to girls, who is already able to get girls, and emulate exactly what they do. And this is what I did. I was around a friend since my freshman year of high school, and whenever we would go places, this dude would pull. This dude would be able to walk into a party, see the girl that he likes, start talking to her, start playing games with her, and he'd end up with her number. He'd end up with her at the end of the night. And so as I started going to parties with this man, it's 2020, I graduated out of high school and COVID was happening, but we were going to a college that, didn't have as much restrictions for it. So we were at these places, we were at these parties. I started emulating this man. And the biggest difference I saw between me and him was that when I would go up to a girl, I'd be afraid. I'd be afraid of what I'm actually trying to say or the actual thoughts inside my head. I wouldn't say what was on my mind. I would say what I thought she would want to hear. That is the biggest mistake that most guys make when they're talking to girls, is that they have this idea of like a guy who gets girls. And I'm saying this as an imaginary thing, not you emulating someone that you know in real life, but you have this idea in your head about what guys are supposed to say to girls, what girls would want to hear. But if you haven't gotten with a girl before, if you haven't talked to girls that much, then you have no clue what the actual truth to this is. So you end up being safe, being very passive when you're talking to girls, and that makes you come across really, really boring or uncomfortable with being yourself, with being who you really are. And that's the biggest lesson I learned about this video. And I mean, in this video, I want to really go over that lesson and how I broke that. And it wasn't just from emulating this guy and trying it, but there's some specific techniques you can do, which I'll go over now, that can really fast track this process of you becoming more authentic, of you becoming more of your real self, so you can talk to girls and you can come up with stuff on the fly. Because it's never, and do not do this, please do not do this. It's never about knowing specific lines or being able to say a repeated phrase to different girls that will get them more interested in you. It's never about that, which, there's this huge pickup community online, and they would literally do that. They would gather on forums and they would share stories and lines about the best things that would work with girls. So you guys just got to say this, do this first, say this, then this and this, and then you're good. And I'm sure it worked on like a few dumb girls in public, but is that really the type of girl you want to get? Is that the type of girl you want interested in you? Someone who would just fall for listening to the same back-to-back lines, complimenting them or something? No. The type of girl that you want to get with is someone who responds to your authentic self, who, whatever jokes, whatever humor you have, whatever you're interested in, someone who responds to that. Otherwise, you're just wasting your time, and maybe you can get into your first relationship, but you know what? You're going to regret it 6 months later or even longer. If you get trapped like so many guys do at this age range coming out of high school, they get into their first relationship and then they get stuck in that cycle. They feel those emotions for the first time with their first partner, and because they haven't felt that in so long, they just hold on to that. They just get stuck in that relationship, even though it's not right for them. And there's a few paths that they could go here, This dude could just be stuck with this girl and get married eventually, have kids eventually. And then what is he going to do when he's older? He's going to get addicted to porn, or maybe they get divorced and he has to deal with that. The kids have to deal with that. That's an extreme situation. For most other guys in this situation, maybe they'll just go through this relationship for a year, 2 years, and then they'll break it up. And then they have to go through this whole emotional sort of transition period, which, like you'll grow a lot in that time. Yeah, but is that ideal? Not just for you, but is that ideal for the woman that you're, getting with? Is that ideal for her to have to go through that emotional thing just because you were too afraid to be yourself, or to be yourself in front of her, or even have that conversation? So anyways, the first technique on how you got to break this off is exposure therapy. Now, I think this is going to be what most people in this space talk about, which is getting reps of just talking to girls and talking to guys too outside of the party setting, and just not caring at all what you're going to say. That means like no bars on just what's coming out of your head, and you're going to say some cringy things, you're going to say some jokes that don't land, but this is the only way that you can get the feedback onto what responds, not just what responds better to people, but what type of person you want to be. Because you obviously don't want to be this fake people-pleasing person that only says things that make people feel good about themselves. Like, you obviously want to compliment people. You want to be the type of guy who makes other people feel good about themselves. You don't want to judge people too much. You don't want to be talking about them, but you don't want to go so far with that that you start just playing this character, playing this like fake self-image you have in front of other people. Instead, what you want to do is you want to talk, you want to be, respectful, you want to listen to people, you want to compliment them, but you want to talk about what you genuinely want to talk about. If you think something is funny, you say it. If you think something is interesting, bring it up, even if you're interrupting someone. Even if it's not the thing that the other person wants to talk about, make them interested in it because you're passionate about it. And this is the first step to becoming more of yourself. And the only way to do this, you cannot logically think right now as you're sitting watching this video. You cannot logically think about how you're going to be this type of person. You can't get that practice watching me. You have to go and try it yourself. And it doesn't have to be with girls at first. It can be with just guys, with friends that you have. It can be with people in your class, people at the gym. Whenever you just randomly get in a conversation with someone, just experiment with it, fuck around and just like say something that you wouldn't usually say the first thing that pops up in your brain, and try to like get into that more social flow. And flow is very important here. Flow is very important because when you're in this flow state, it's when you get your most creative, your most genuine thoughts. And this is extremely important, not just for building relationships, real relationships with some friends, with guys, with girls, but it's for attracting women, for talking to the girl that you actually like. If you want her to be interested in you, you have to be able to be in this social flow and notice the little things. You don't want to be anxious thinking about some other stuff or be worried about how you look or how you sound to this person. You want to be so in the moment, immersed in the conversation, that you notice some little thing that she finds more funny, some little thing about her, some little reaction or something, so that you can spontaneously react in the moment and be able to be a social person, be able to come across as more interesting. Because someone who's more anxious and is more portraying this fake character, let's say, in the moment of the conversation when they're talking to the girl they like, they're going to be sort of choking up on their words a little bit. They're going to be like thinking something. She's going to say maybe a joke or something. She's going to say something funny. And that person's just going to be too scared to say like the joke that might seem uncomfortable, to roast the girl, to like make fun of her, which to a girl is very, very weak and unattractive. And so with this first step of doing exposure therapy, becoming more of yourself, so go start with a guy just today. Your action step is to start with one person. Go and be yourself to them. And just try something that's out of the ordinary, something out of your comfort zone that you wouldn't normally say. And then after that, start trying it with girls. And it can be friends at first. It doesn't have to be this cold approach that you're going up to someone. But try it. Try just being more of yourself in the moment. Try to be observant of the times that you're not being yourself, that you are scared to say something. Because those moments are very interesting if you can actually be aware of it. And those moments will define, your fears. You'll really be able to discover what the fears are that are driving you to feel that way are. And once you repeatedly do this exposure therapy, you'll see that it's so easy eventually, because your brain wants to be this way. You want to be yourself. You don't want to be playing this act, because it's more effort to be fake than it is to be real. It's just that we're so programmed and conditioned to be this fake person for so long that almost makes it easier in our brains. But I promise that if you go through this process, you'll be so authentic and real to people, and then you'll be able to start talking to girls. Now, this doesn't mean that this will solve all of your problems, because even if you just yourself, there's some weird people who are just themselves. I'm sure you're thinking of them as I say that right now. There's some weird people who are just themselves, and if they were to say the things that come to the top of their mind to girls, to boys, to whoever, they'll be weirded out by them. And so this is why, through this feedback loop of exposure therapy, you have to discover what you really want to become. So not this people-pleasing type of person who's just, trying to prop up people, trying to just say what makes the other people laugh and enjoy themselves. But you got to find out how much you want to talk about your interests in this way, for example. Like how much are you going to bring up what your career is, what's the stuff you're interested in conversation, how much you want to ask the other person about that stuff. And you find this sort of balance of, okay, I'm not talking about myself this much, I'm talking about them for more. And my general rule of thumb is like, in most cases, you want to be asking questions. And unless the other person asks you a direct question about something you're interested in, or something that you're pursuing, don't bring it up. because they don't care. And it's not that they wouldn't care, it's just that I promise you, you will have more fun in conversation discovering more about other people than you will about bringing up something just to please them in a certain way. And it's hard to be exact with this because there is no logical formula for this, especially if you're anything like me. You want this sort of formula, you want this sort of thing, but that's sort of the beauty of this human intuition that we're building and relationships that we're also building, is that it's all spontaneous and it's all random. If it was logical, if there was sort of this framework to follow, it would be so boring. And if you met someone new on a daily basis, you would not be interested by the conversation with them. And so I was going to do multiple steps for this video, but I think I'll make a future part for more advanced techniques in this area. But the first step that I followed, I think that was 4 years ago now, that made the biggest difference to me being able to attract women and to be more of myself, was to do exposure therapy by emulating someone you know and just practice saying some uncomfortable things that you wouldn't do normally. Go out of your comfort zone in conversations and see, as you become more comfortable, being more uncomfortable in those situations, and how that's more of your authentic self. This is my first video on the Unfiltered channel. I haven't recorded straight up like this, but I enjoy it. I'm going to try to do this as much as possible, hopefully daily. Fuck it, we're doing this daily. I love this quality right now too. To a new channel, to a new age. Cheers.